Hey, Mama, welcome back to the Thrive Mama podcast. I'm Martina, certified nutrition consultant and holistic health coach, and a mama of two, and I'm so glad you're here. We are here to help busy moms unlock their energy, balance their hormones, and break out of burnout using nutrition as a foundation. So, in this podcast, we will dive into actionable strategies on nutrition, nervous system healing, aligning with your cycles, all with a healthy dose of relatable motherhood thrown into the mix, and all designed to help you move past surviving to actually thrive in motherhood. Let's do this. So today we're going to be talking about how your food and your stress are intimately connected. And I think most of us would agree that our food impacts our general health and our energy, right? Like, I don't have to work very hard to convince you that what you eat impacts your health and how you feel in your body. But a lot of us don't realize that our food also has a direct impact on the nervous system itself and therefore on our stress levels. There's a few ways that this happens, but it's this missed connection for a lot of us that the food that's on our plate has a direct impact on our emotional wellness, our mental health, and our stress levels throughout the day because our food is impacting the nervous system. And the main connection points we're going to be talking about today are our blood sugar, our hormones, general inflammation in the body, and then digestion. And all four of those things have this core root system in common, which is our food, our nutrition. Our nutrition, of course, impacts our blood sugar. Our nutrition is the building blocks of our hormones, impacts how our hormones work. Our nutrition is the driver of general inflammation in the body. And our nutrition, of course, impacts the health of our digestion. So, if those four things also impact the nervous system, you can see how your food is actually connected to your stress in a really direct way. And when we talk about managing our stress and our mental health, we talk a lot about some really beautiful medicine out there in the world, like therapy and nature and somatic work and actual medicine to help us with our mental health. But we don't often think about our food as medicine for the nervous system. It's this missing piece for a lot of us. And if regulating your stress is a goal of yours, it is time to get really intentional about things like your blood sugar, your hormones, your inflammation, and your digestion. And before I go any further into those, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about the nervous system itself, because the nervous system, it's talked about a lot these days in health circles for good reason. It's very important. But I want to make sure we're aligned on what we mean when we even say the nervous system. So, the nervous system itself is like your body's communication network, and it specifically is communication between your brain and the rest of your body. And all parts of your body are connected to the nervous system and then can send messages to the brain about the general state of affairs in the body. And the brain takes that messaging and gets to make decisions about what we do, how safe we are, where we should be spending our energy. And that all comes from the communication from the rest of the body. The brain itself is not out here scoping the field to see what's up. The brain is relying on messages from the eyes, the hands, the heart, the feet, the digestive tract, all of it together to send the brain a message about like what's up in our current world. So the nervous system is what's telling our body how safe or unsafe we are, how we should be regulating our emotions, how we should be responding to our environment and to challenges. So if our nervous system is getting the signal that things are unsafe or that we need to be on guard, which many of our nervous systems are, it is going to operate from a place of overdrive until that threat has passed. But in our modern worlds, a lot of us are just operating in constant cycles of stress for the nervous system. The nervous system gets activated, and we never really get to come back down to that rest and digest state of the body. We stay stuck in the respond to threats, respond to challenges. So the nervous system is designed to respond to these external stressors and help us react quickly, right? Like if we're faced with a life-threatening situation, We want the quick energy. We want the quick responses. We want the quick action to run away, to fight, to hide. And then the nervous system is designed, once that threat has passed, to come back into a state of regulation, into what's called the parasympathetic state, which is our rest and digest nervous system state. That's our state of calm. And we want to live there as a baseline and then move into activation only when we need to respond to something that's truly imminent. The problem, of course, is that in a lot of our lives, our nervous system gets activated a lot and by things that are not necessarily life threatening, right? So when our nervous system is dysregulated, it is getting a lot of messages that we are not safe. And the body really takes that seriously and begins to operate as though we are surrounded by danger. And what happens is we start out in this state of overdrive, of hypervigilance, of anxiety. But because that is supposed to be a temporary reactive state, when we get stuck there, that leads us into complete depletion. It ends up sending us into cycles of activation and exhaustion, activation and exhaustion. And that is where we get into what I call burnout. So, with these signals that the nervous system is getting from our body, from our external world, a lot of that is coming from inside the house. And our food is such a foundational piece of how the body works and communicates in its internal systems. So let's start with blood sugar here as an example. Our blood sugar is designed to go up and down after we eat, right? That is a normal response. It's going to go up as we metabolize our food and then go back down. And at that point, typically we get signals of hunger and we eat again. So this pattern happens throughout our entire day. But what we want to be careful of are blood sugar spikes and drops that are really extreme, really fast, and end up going very high or very low outside of the sort of healthy middle range that we want to stay in. And there's a few things that can cause these really extreme highs and low patterns in our blood sugar. The main ones are really simple carbohydrate foods and simple sugars are going to cause our blood sugar, the sugar circulating our body, to spike really high and then go down really fast, which starts this whole process in the body where we get stuck in this high and low pattern. So this happens with foods like breads, pastas, chips, pizza, sugar, any sort of sugary foods, fruit juices, these things that are really highly concentrated in simple, quickly digested carbohydrates and sugars. Now, the way that this impacts our stress is there's this interesting sort of secondary response. When our blood sugar goes up very high, we also have a release of cortisol. And cortisol is one of our main stress hormones that the body uses, the adrenal glands actually use to tell us that something's not safe. So, the big picture pattern here is when we eat food that makes our blood sugar unstable, really high, really low, that is telling the body that there is stressors around us and we release cortisol, which makes us feel anxious and alert and stressed. So, you might be going through your morning feeling anxious, feeling tight, feeling stressed, and you might be looking around your day like, there's nothing going on. Like, why am I so anxious? Like, work is fine, everything's fine. What's really going on is you had nothing but cereal for breakfast, and your blood sugar went high fast, crashed low. Cortisol is now in the mix, and now the body's having a stress response. The nervous system is activated. So, even though your outside world is peachy keen, there's no problems, your inside world is signaling danger and stress, and you are stuck in this anxiety response that's really just from your blood sugar. It's just from the blood sugar spike and crash. So that's a biggie that I see with busy moms. And what's really interesting, I want to call out about blood sugar is that this similar pattern happens when we skip meals as well. So it's not just eating the sugar and the refined carbs, it's also going too long without eating. When we skip meals, the body sees that as a sign of famine, scarcity of food, and we start to release stored energy in the body, which is stored as sugar. So now this stored sugar is being released into the body because the body thinks, oh, there's not enough food around. We'll use our backup, right? We'll use our storage. And that storage is circulating in your blood the same way it would if you had just eaten a cookie and nothing else. So when we skip meals, we have the same blood sugar spike and crash as if we were eating simple refined carbohydrates. And it's a really smart response from the body to make sure we don't get depleted in times of scarcity. The problem is when we're just busy and not eating, that leaves our nervous system activated and alert throughout the day just from the internal response of what we are eating or from skipping meals. Another big connection response between our food and our nervous system are our hormones. So, our hormones are like the messengers in the body. So, if the nervous system is the big communication hub, the hormones are part of the messaging system. They are actually carrying communication from one part of the body to the other. And our hormones tell our body when to wake up, when to sleep, when to digest our food, when to eat, when to make a baby, when to not make a baby. And it really impacts so much about our energy and our moods and our mental health, as I'm sure many of you have already experienced yourself. And hormones are directly impacted by the food that we eat. They are compounds in the body that are built from the building blocks of our food. So if there are gaps in what we're eating, if we're not eating enough overall, or if we're not eating enough of a certain type of food that our body needs, that is going to impact how our body makes our hormones, how the brain, the thyroid, the adrenals actually make our hormones. It'll impact how many hormones are around, and it'll impact how well they actually function. So there's this complex, very sensitive signaling pattern in the body that tells us, oh, we need more progesterone today. Oh, we need more testosterone today. Oh, we need to make more leptin right now. And when that signaling is thrown off because of changes in our food and things aren't working the way they're supposed to, our hormones are going to be directly impacted. And the nervous system uses those hormones as key indicators of what's going on, of the state of our world. So when our hormones are imbalanced, really impacts how the nervous system is able to settle into safety or how it stays stuck in activation. And then the third way that our food directly impacts our nervous system and stress is our inflammation levels. And inflammation is really just the body's defense system. So when the body senses an injury or harm inside, it is going to have an inflammatory response to protect and start to heal that injury. So think of like a fever as an example of an inflammatory response. It senses the threat, the harm of the infection, and spikes the temperature as part of the defense process so that the infection cannot thrive and survive at that temperature. Same with like swelling around a cut or a bruise. That's part of the inflammation response. And the swelling is actually giving that injury extra, literally extra space and padding to heal to reduce the risk of re injury when it's in that vulnerable state. So, inflammation is very wise and very important. The problem is, a lot of our modern foods are causing constant inflammatory responses in the body, and it tells the body that there are constant injuries and harm it needs to respond to, even though the harm being done is actually just compounds in our food. So when we eat things that the body doesn't recognize as food, highly processed, preservatives, or certain compounds that our body can't process easily, the body responds with inflammation. The body sees these alien compounds that we're ingesting and views them as a threat, as an invader, and will respond with inflammation. So now there's chronic inflammation inside the body. You can't see it outside necessarily. Sometimes you can, but you can't always see it outside. But it's internal inflammation that is directly communicating with the nervous system. Yo, there's stuff going on here. Like we're under attack. There are threats. We can't tell where it's coming from. And you can imagine what that does to the nervous system's like safety meter. It's not going to feel safe to be in rest and spaciousness and processing if there is constant threats internally. So, some examples of inflammatory foods that are causing those types of responses. This is highly personal to some degree. So some foods that cause an inflammation response in you may be totally fine for the person next to you. So it is really valuable to spend time getting to know your own body and really getting curious about how you feel after certain types of foods or certain foods. But some foods that tend to be very inflammatory for a lot of folks would be things like, again, those hyper refined carbohydrates, foods with a lot of extra preservatives in them. If you can't read the ingredient label, there's likely additives and preservatives that trigger inflammation in your body. Refined seed oils that are found in a lot of processed and packaged foods or restaurant foods. These are the high omega 6, very refined, like hydrogenated oils. If you see the word hydrogenated, that would be an example of an inflammatory type oil. And then a couple of others that are more individual but common for a lot of people are gluten, dairy, corn, and soy. So those are some I would just get curious about for yourself. This is not a blanket, those foods are bad statement, but for many of us, those foods do trigger more inflammation than other foods. And part of that has to do with our modern agricultural practices and how these particular plants have been cultivated over generations. They're actually slightly different species now than our bodies really evolved to eat. And if your body's already having any imbalances, those are foods that can really tip the scales one way or the other. So, again, those foods were gluten, dairy, soy, and corn would be some to get curious about. So, when we're having that chronic inflammation internally, that is keeping the nervous system stuck in a stressed state, which is going to make it much harder for your body to sit still, to regulate emotions, to manage stress, and to think clearly throughout your day. And we can do a whole nother episode on anti inflammatory foods, but for today, just know this is one of the pieces going on here. Some of the foods we're eating are actually causing our defense army to come to the rescue, and it's telling our nervous system, we're not safe, gotta stay on alert, like something's up here. Hey there, mama. Quick question. Are you feeling drained, overwhelmed, or just ready for more actionable strategies for nourishing yourself in motherhood? Well, I've got a special gift for you. I am opening the waitlist for my Thrive Mama group coaching program. And when you join the priority waitlist, I am gifting you 5 free lessons straight from inside the program itself, delivered right to your inbox. So these 5 lessons are packed with simple, actionable strategies to help you transform the way that you think about energy and stress and focus on the highest impact areas to start unlocking more energy, balancing your blood sugar, balancing your hormones, and healing your nervous system. And there are free lessons in here on exactly how energy and stress are connected, how food plays a role into all of this, how to know if you're actually eating enough food, which, hint, hint, you're probably not, and how to snack in a way that actually supports your energy instead of draining you more. And the best part is you will also get early access to Thrive Mama when the doors open, and there'll be a special waitlist discount for you. Plus, you get a sneak peek into the transformation and the resources that would be waiting for you inside of Thrive Mama. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link below the show notes, join the priority waitlist, and start your thriving era today. And then the last really key link here between our food and our nervous system is digestion. And this also deserves its entire own episode, but I love talking about digestion because most of us don't realize that our digestive tract, our whole digestive system, from the stomach through the intestines, actually has an entire nervous system to itself. It is called the enteric nervous system. And not only are we communicating with our digestive tract all the time, the digestive tract is actually creating its own neurotransmitters to be part of this communication hub. For example, you may have heard of serotonin before, which is one of our main feel-good neurotransmitters that the nervous system uses. About 95% of our serotonin in the body is made in the gut, not in the brain. So many of the most common supports for things like anxiety and depression are really targeting the brain, and yet most of those neurotransmitters are being created in the gut. And you probably already have a feeling about how your food impacts your gut. We've all experienced eating something and then feeling really bloated, really gassy, really heavy. Of course, what we eat is impacting how balanced our pH is in the gut tract, how many live enzymes are supporting our digestive process, how long food is sitting before it's moved out of the body, all of these different factors that impact the overall health of the digestive system. Our microbiome, all of those healthy bacteria that live in the body, a lot of it is housed in the gut. And what we are eating or not eating is directly impacting the health of that entire system. And when our digestion is off in any way, if we have heartburn, if we have constipation, bloating, food sensitivities, all these things, or even not obvious symptoms like acne can be linked to gut things, migraines and headaches, and then lots of mental and emotional symptoms like anxiety, depression, brain fog can all be linked back to the gut because of how our digestion impacts our nervous system and neurotransmitters and the way the entire system works together. So, those are just a few of the biggest links between our food and our stress levels. And just to summarize, because I know we got really nitty gritty today, really into the details and the science, but to summarize for you, when we eat highly processed refined carbohydrates or sugar, or when we skip meals, that changes our blood sugar balance, which impacts our stress, makes us more stressed and anxious. Okay, that's thing number one. Number two, when our hormones are imbalanced because we have gaps in our nutrition, that impacts our nervous system function and leaves us more stressed and overwhelmed. Number three is our inflammation. So when we're eating foods that cause a defense response in the body and causes long-term inflammation, that is telling the body we're not safe. The nervous system picks up that message and stays on alert, on activation, much longer than it's meant to. And then number four, when our digestion is imbalanced in any way, that is impacting how it can communicate with our nervous system. It's impacting our moods, our focus, and our overall nervous system state. Our sense of peace and calm can really be impacted by what's going on in the digestive tract. So we will take space for all of these topics to have their own episode throughout this podcast because they really all deserve their own deep dive. But for today, what I would love to leave you with is an opportunity to get curious about where your food might be impacting your stress. Your stress may not be coming from external things. It may be really impacted by what's going on inside your body in a way that maybe you haven't thought of before. So start getting curious, start making your own connections between daily habits or gaps that may be impacting your nervous system and the way that you are moving through your day. And be sure to stick around so we can deep dive all of these topics together and really start building in supports so we can help your nervous system shift into a state of stability and peace so that you can really thrive in your daily life. So if you are enjoying these topics, I would love for you to come and say hi over on Instagram at Luia Wellness, or you can hop on our email newsletter. I'll leave the link down below this episode for you to join that. We'll get weekly deep dive topics on health and motherhood, as well as any sort of offerings and staying up to date on upcoming events and ways to work with me. And then lastly, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes of the Thrive Mama podcast. And until next time, take beautiful care of yourself.